Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS Slate Breakdown for Week 3. The season is flying by. We're here. We're back. We're going to be breaking down this slate, going through some high ownership and some possible pivots at all the positions. So stay tuned. We'll go through it all. Before we get into that, come join us at LineStar. We have a bunch of different promo offers. The promo code for all of them are LineStar. We have Thrive, we have Sleeper, Underdog Fantasy, and Chalkboard. All of them give up to a $100 match when you use promo code LineStar. Then just to note that 3 of them, Sleeper, Underdog, and Chalkboard, it's a $10 minimum, whereas Thrive, it is a $25 minimum over there to get the 1 month free. So come join us, try it out. Just use one of those partners and you get a month free. It's easy as that. Now, let's get into some fun. Let's get into this slate. It is an interesting one. We have one obvious game that is very, very enticing, and that is Chargers at Minnesota. 54.5 game total. The next closest is 48, and that is KC and Chicago, and then also Denver and Miami. Now, there are some other games that are very interesting. Jacksonville, Houston is, probably the second fastest game on this slate behind Chargers and Vikings. And then also Baltimore, Indy, which is only a 44-point total, similar to like Jacksonville and Houston, but that game is also another one that is going to be a little bit of a faster pace, and nobody's really going to those two games. So those are definitely interesting. And we'll see, we'll walk through the slate, see how things break out on an ownership standpoint, and we'll go from there. So, highest owned quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. Almost 25% owned. He's 8,300. Look, he is obviously an every week consideration. He is in a good spot. That Bears defense has been awful. The organization as a whole for Chicago right now is in complete disarray. We don't know what's going on with their coach. All sorts of things, are troublesome here for the Bears. Now, the one issue I have with stacking Patrick Mahomes is it is so hard to guess the pass catchers. At least this week, we have Richie James out. Kadarius Toney missed practices and is questionable. So there is, not as big of a wide receiver tree, but there's still 4 guys that all could do it. But week in and week out, they don't really do too much. So outside of Travis Kelce, it's very hard to trust any of the other pass catchers. And if you have a Mahomes as your quarterback, I think you do need to stack him with 2 different receivers, or pass catchers, I should say. Just because how Mahomes, breaks the slate is he's throwing for 5 touchdowns, and you want to get the guys that go off. Now, the hardest thing with him is picking out who, and that's how a lot of stacks are going to fail with Mahomes this week. So I don't mind it. That's just my 2 cents on Mahomes. Kirk Cousins has had a great first 2 games. They're throwing the ball at an insane clip. The one thing here is the coach has said that they want to run the ball better than they have. They have not ran the ball well. They have also faced 2 very good run defenses. They're now going against the Chargers, which is a little more of a run funnel, meaning the Chargers will let people run a little bit and they try and stop the pass. Now, the Chargers defensively have been bad, just, all over the place. But with that being said, it does make the easiest path for success through the ground for the Vikings. Now, while I think Cousins is an obvious option due to the fact that, this game is in 54.5 total, I don't love the ownership here, but I'm absolutely interested, and I'm going to have some Viking stacks there. Next, we got Tua. I think Tua is a very, very interesting one. The one issue I have with this game is that I don't see it going into a shootout. Miami, how they play defense, they keep safeties back, they try and keep everything in front. And Russell Wilson's, like his sweet spot, the best thing he is at is throwing the ball deep. So if they're not going to be throwing the ball deep and Wilson has to dink and dunk it, I think it spells a problem for the Broncos. However, with that being said, I think Judy, who will play more of that short intermediate area, is interesting as a wide receiver target. But back to the Dolphins. Dolphins are in a great spot. I think they will score plenty of points versus the Broncos. Tyreek is an obvious great spot. Obvious, you may want to play him. Jalen Waddle, however, has been questionable all week, is in concussion protocol. He did practice in limited fashion today, but we're not sure what's going to happen with him. If he is out, it makes the Dolphins stack very, very affordable, and it allows you to do a lot of other things with the rest of your lineup. So I think Tua is interesting, and he is another guy that if I am playing him, I am probably stacking with 2 pass catchers. Geno Smith, he's fine. I don't like him like I did last week, being against Carolina. Josh Allen obviously has huge upside, but I just don't love this matchup versus Washington. Now we're getting to a couple guys that are low owned that I very much am intrigued on. Lamar Jackson. Like I said, this game is one of the higher pace games on the main slate. So Jackson is very interesting. Colts are going to have Gardner Minshew at quarterback. He can throw the ball. He can keep this offense going. He is one of the best backups in the league. Probably should be a starter somewhere. But so I like Jackson is what I'm saying here. They aren't good versus the pass. Zay Flowers is a very good option. Odell Beckham is out, so it's going to limit how many places Jackson can go with that ball and that are real, fantasy options. So you got Flowers, Bateman, and Mark Andrews. Those are your targets. You take 2 of those. If the Ravens put up 30 plus, you're in a very good spot, as all of them are kind of low owned, and it's in a spot where this game could go a little quicker than expected and higher than a 44 total. Colts also have some interesting run backs, and so a game stack of here, it's kind of interesting. Next, Trevor Lawrence. I talked about this game as being one of the faster ones. Zay Flowers is going to miss. So you got Christian Kirk and you got Ridley and Evan Ingram. It's another spot where the target tree has condensed, leading, to an easier way to stack a solid quarterback in a good spot. Other thing is Texans cornerback or secondary is hurting. They're missing one of their corners this week. He may go on IR. So I think attacking that Houston D is absolutely interesting. Texans also have shown they're willing to throw the ball to try and get back into games, which just, leads to potential shootout and higher score games. I've heard some talk about CJ Stroud being interesting this week, because he threw 384 yards and had 2 touchdowns last week. They do trust him with the ball, and it is a game which I think could shoot out a bit. The last little pivot I want to talk about is Justin Herbert. It is insane to me that he is not higher owned. He has been great to start the year. You have 2 great pass catchers. Eckler is out, which is another condensing of the target tree. I think it is very, very interesting going to Herbert. Another thing here is what we have seen. Minnesota keeps allowing big plays. Devontae Smith got up last week. the week before Mike Evans got off. I would not be surprised whatsoever if a big play happens to Mike Williams this week. So I am very interested in the Chargers stacks. All right, so next, let's get to running back. All right, highest owned is Jerome Ford. No surprise. Hunt is expected to play, but I do not think he's going to play that much. And we don't really know what kind of shape he is in. So it's in kind of an interesting spot. He's going to get the workload. He is super cheap, but Tennessee is very, very good versus the run. We have now had, this is the third straight week where the running back versus Tennessee is chalky. It has failed the last 2 weeks. Not saying it'll fail this time, but that is a reason to avoid when he is so high owned. Sorry, sun's coming in the window there. So that is a reason to avoid him when he is so high owned. He's going to get all the work, and volume is key at the running back position. I just don't love it with everybody going there. So that's my one worry. Next, we got Travis Etienne. This is the way that the Jaguars stacks don't happen. You can run all over the Texans, and Etienne is a great player in getting all of the work. So I am very intrigued with Etienne this week. It is also another reason why the Lawrence stack is interesting, because if the Lawrence stack goes off, Etienne likely doesn't. And so you're beating any lineups with Etienne. Bijan Robinson versus the Lions. Look, the Lions are at home. They are also missing some key defensive players. While they are a decent run defense, Bijan can beat you a lot of ways. And I think there is a chance that this game is kind of high scoring. Atlanta, they can create big plays through the run game to promote that high scoring game. And that's really what you need, is big plays to create shootouts. I think Bijan is interesting. Now, he's getting a lot less volume than, some of the other guys in that higher price range, but he is an exceptional talent. Tony Pollard. I think Pollard's going unowned. This guy has an absolutely elite usage level. Versus Arizona, who isn't great versus the rush. Pollard, I think he's one of my key plays this week. I like him a lot. I think there's a very good chance he smashes the slate. Jamar Gibbs. Now, this is a very interesting one. As everybody knows, David Montgomery is out. Well, sorry. David Montgomery is doubtful. He didn't practice all week. He's probably not going to play. So now what happens with Gibbs? What we've seen is he did definitely get an uptick in work when Montgomery went out. So that is interesting. However, we also know that they're not really wanting to put Gibbs out there with all of the workload. So I think Greg Reynolds has a decent workload this week, and that makes him also an interesting low-owned option there. So, that's the case here. So, anyways, Jamar Gibbs, if he is the guy, he's in an absolute smash spot, and I love him. At this point, we don't really know what the Lions are going to do, and it could very well be Reynolds, could be Gibbs. If ownership gets real high on Gibbs, I may scale back my Gibbs and try and play a little more Reynolds. Zach Moss, he played literally all of the snaps last week. I think he only missed 1 or 2. He's only 5,500. He's in a fine spot in a game we like, so that's fine. Alexander Madison. This is a play that I really, really like, and I'm probably going to play a decent amount of him. Chargers run D is not good. They allow a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing attempts. He's low owned and in one of the best game environments. So what happens if that Kirk Cousins stack fails? Cousins high owned, Jefferson's high owned, and Madison gets the points, you're then getting pushed ahead of a lot of lineups. And if they're putting up points, the Chargers on the other side are likely putting up points as well. So I think Madison's very interesting and gives you some leverage on some of those Minnesota stacks. Kenneth Walker's absolutely in play. Stevenson is in play. Craig Reynolds is one of my punt plays that I like, as well as Algier. And then, that Derrick Henry as well. I think you have to put in Derrick Henry there. Look, Cleveland's D is solid, but Henry's had two decent games. And now he is in a spot where literally nobody is going there. So just on ownership alone, I think he's interesting, as well as Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly, Eckler is out. Kelly is going to carry the load. He did nothing last week, but versus a very, very good run D. Now he's getting Minnesota run D, and he can absolutely put up points for them. So I am interested in Kelly as well. At the wide receiver spot, all right, like I said, Jefferson is chalk. He is in a great spot. I like Jefferson. Not going to talk you out of it if you like him. He's a great way to bring back this game if you go with a Herbert stack, which that would probably be the way to do it to get a little bit different. Or you can play with him for Cousins. You could also just do a one-off just because he is a guy that if the Vikings score a lot, there is a very good chance that 90% of the points are from Jefferson. So definitely like him. Tyreek Hill, he's in a great spot, especially if Waddle is out. If Waddle is out, Tyreek will get all the coverage, but he will get a ton of targets. Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell is in a very, very interesting spot versus this Jaguar team. He had 10 targets last week, 4 targets the week before. His snap counts went up. Noah Brown is out this week, so his snap count should stay up. And he's super cheap. He is expensive being high owned, but that price tag is very interesting. CD Lamb. He's in a good spot. Dallas is going to probably roll over the Cardinals, and Arizona allows 53% more fantasy points to wide receiver when home. So he's definitely interesting. Just most likely the Cowboys are able to just run down the throats of Arizona and they don't have to throw much. That is my one worry with him. Drake London, man, we just don't know what we're going to get with this Atlanta offense. I do very much like London as a lower owned guy. I think that if Detroit is making Atlanta pass, then London could have a really good game, but I do worry about his upside just because they don't throw enough. Mike Williams, I absolutely love this week. As I said, Minnesota has been getting beat by big plays. Williams is their big play guy. So I think Williams is in a great spot. Keenan's also in a good spot, probably going lower owned than he should. One thing with Keenan is he is usually allergic to the end zone, but got 2 touchdowns last week, and that likely is going to have some more people wanting to play him as the weekend goes on. But he is going to get a ton of targets, and on DraftKings, where it's a full point per reception, it is definitely interesting. Stephon Diggs is very interesting. He is showing up as one of our higher leverage options versus the Commanders. I just don't love that game, but he's going to go low owned. Pittman, I think, is much more interesting this week than other weeks. The reason being is Minshew is a better passer than Richardson. So I could see a little more passing from the Colts offense this week. And obviously that benefits Pittman. The one worry is that, he's not really a deep threat. He's going to have to do it by 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown or something like that. Christian Kirk, I think this ownership is going to go up with the Zay Jones news, but I really like him. I really like Ridley this week. I think they are in a great spot and going too low owned. Zay Flowers is one of my favorite plays on the slate. As I've said, I like this game. He also has a bunch of targets, has a bunch of red zone targets, and is missing a touchdown. I think those touchdowns are going to come for him. The other thing is their running back spot is pretty beat up right now, so maybe they don't run quite as much as they normally would. I think Flowers is interesting there. I've mentioned Jared Jeudy. I think Jeudy is interesting. The way the Dolphins play D is they keep two guys back. They try and keep everything in front of them, and that is Jerry Jeudy's game. Olave is in a tough matchup. Lockett's kind of interesting. Absolutely love Ridley. And let's move it on over to tight end. Smythe is getting a ton of ownership. I can't follow chalk Durham Smythe. I just won't do it. Travis Kelce. It is Kelce. The one thing you have to worry here is how healthy is he? He only played 68% of the snaps last week. Does he go up to 72, 75-ish this week? We'll see. But I do absolutely worry about some health there for Kelce. Zach Ertz has been a target monster, but he doesn't do much with the targets. And with him being one of the more popular tight ends, I don't love it. Absolutely love Mark Andrews. I love TJ Hawkinson at very low ownership. Went nuts last week. He had 9 targets week 1, 8 targets week 2. I think that continues this week, and he gets big-time targets. Dawson Knox has missed a lot of practice this week. So Dalton Kincaid could be in line for a bigger workload, which is very, very interesting. One of the guys that it's going completely overlooked that I wanted to bring up, Jake Ferguson. So Ferguson has 4 targets last week, 7 targets week 1, but of these 11 targets, 8 of them have been in the red zone. So I think he is very interesting because of the upside for touchdowns for him. Now, he only has 1 touchdown, but look, Prescott is looking his way in the red zone, and that is interesting as a punt option at tight end. That's all you're looking for, is them to get 50 yards and a touchdown. He very well could. Another one we got to bring up here is Taysom Hill. Saints are hurting at running back. Tony Jones Jr. and Kendre Miller are the 2 running backs. Kendre is a rookie who has been hurt, so we don't know how much work he's going to get. Tony Jones is there, and when it was Taysom and Tony Jones, Taysom got 9 carries, threw 1 ball. I think he could be heavily involved at very low ownership, and he is a guy that when he gets heavily involved, he can break the slate. So I think he is interesting. I think there is a chance for 8 to 10 touches for him. And cheap Saints price, I don't hate it. Don't hate it. We're not going to get into defense. I mean, go with your gut. Do what you think. Defense is one of the most hardest spots to predict. And I never really spend too much time on it. So that is that. Let's go through the matchups real quick, just to give a quick, look at what we thought as far as ownership. So Jackson, Mahomes, Tua, all with very good matchups, as well as Herbert, who is low owned. So Jackson and Herbert, both lower owned guys that we liked, both rate high on the matchup tool. If we go RB wise, Tony Pollard, I don't think he's getting owned enough. He is one of the higher owned RBs, but I think he should be higher. He is in an absolutely great spot. As it shows, Etienne in a good spot. We talked about that. We did not talk about Isaiah Pacheco at all, and we probably should. He does have a great spot. Jones crushed him. Rashad White crushed Chicago. Now Pacheco is in line. The one issue here is this is really a three-headed backfield. He only had 48% of the snaps last week, or maybe 52. It was 48 week one. He is in line for probably 10 to 15 touches, and I just don't know if you can get a big enough GPP score off of that. So that is my reservation with them, but it is a good matchup. Mostert, surprisingly, is getting a ton of workload, and we have seen in the past when he does, he can break some big plays. Madison, high on the list. We liked him. Bijan, high on the list. Moss, high on the list. So a lot of guys that we have gone over are high on the list here. One of the guys we didn't talk about and probably should have was Amari Cooper. Tennessee has got crushed by the wide receiver one. Keenan Allen got off. Olave got off. He's very interesting. Zay Flowers is absolutely interesting. Zay Jones, Tank Dell, both beat him pretty good. Mike Will, we talked about. You got to like that. This very well could just be Mike Evans at the wide receiver 1-2, and Mike Evans did very well as well. Or, sorry, as wide receiver 2. So, I mean, if you look at the list, a lot of the guys that we have talked to about that are lower owned that we like are in good matchups from the data we have, and they're going low owned. So I think it is an interesting week to get after it and figure out some plays here. One of the things that we should go off on, Ford, one of the worst matchups. The reason he's going so high owned is his price and that he is expected to get a lot of volume. Jamar Gibbs, with the tough matchup, we also have the fact that we're not sure what he's going to do as far as how much his workload is going to be. So you gotta look at these things and, think about them a little bit. Don't just go play all your plays blindly. All right, and then let's go to the tight end here. Look, Smythe is a high-owned guy. He is very cheap. We've seen him get some usage here. If Waddle is out, he should get more usage. But 3 targets last week, 7 week 1. I really think that 7 is probably around his ceiling. He is cheap, so he's under consideration. I just don't like to play a tight end like him at high ownership. Njoku is very interesting. Cleveland may not be able to run. Njoku can make big plays happen at the tight end spot, which doesn't happen often. Knox has missed practice a lot. Oh, he was a full practice. Oh, that was last week. Or no, that was this week. He was full practice Friday, so he probably plays, but it's a little downgrade to Kincaid there. Ferguson is a guy that we're interested in here, high on the list. Mark Andrews as well. So I think there's a lot of ways to go on this slate. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Helps us out a ton. Also, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything you just saw, plus our Props AI Plus tool. It's a great spot. I hope you guys have a great week 3. Good luck, and we'll see you next week. Bye.